family-owned shop in Loganville, Soesby's Garage for all your automotive repair needs. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. We repair engines, alternators, brakes, alignments, AC systems, and more, using certified technicians with over 90 years of combined experience. We also offer same-day service for some repairs. Soesby's Garage, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville. Dependable, honest, and fair. Look us up on Google or Facebook. We'll take good care of you.
Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
I'm your host, Rick Strong, President of Paradigm Security Services, and welcome to Case in Point, presented by Paradigm. We are excited to be with you today on Business RadioX. We're coming to you from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio, located in the beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. Please, will you go to and hit that subscribe button on any of the formats that you're using, any of the platforms. Each week, we plan to feature businesses and people in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve Gwinnett County. And while all businesses have security concerns, not all are about physical security. And we'll touch on that and some related aspects of the show, but this is one of those shows where we're going to do a personal interview rather than a business interview. And I am so happy today to have my guest, Dr. Candice Taylor. She is a Georgia educator and also a candidate for the U.S. Senate. You may not have heard about her, which is something that she's like to get out, and she's running for a very popular seat that I will let her explain to you. But Candace, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate it.
Well, let me ask you this. I always start out with, who is Candice Taylor? Where do you come from? What do you do? And how did you get to doing what you're doing?
Wonderful. So I am from South Georgia. I'm the only candidate from South Georgia, and there's 21 of us. So that's a bunch of people in this field, and this jungle primary. I am an educator. I'm on my 18th year in public education. My husband is also an educator. So we are middle class America, working class. I have 3 children, and so I'm a mother. And I just love our government. I actually hate politics, which is kind of crazy for me to run for the seat.
It's understandable.
But I love the Constitution of the United States of America. And I want to do something about it. I'm tired of looking at the ballot and having to choose between the lesser of evils. And I decided I can't complain if I'm not willing to do something about it.
Well, that's kind of the way it is. If unfortunately, there's a whole lot of people out there willing to complain about it, and then they crawl back in their back rooms and keep their mouth shut and don't get out and
won't go
participate.
vote.
And won't go vote. And that's something we need for everybody to do regardless, is to go vote, make an informed decision, which is one of the reasons why I'm glad that you're on, because if people are going to vote, they need to be informed about who's running and then make their decisions. Do you have any political experience? I know you've got a lot of education, but do you have political experience?
What happened to me was 6 years ago, I finished my Ph.D. in counseling at Regent University in Virginia, and Dr. Ben Carson was my commencement speaker, and he challenged graduates to get involved in government. He said, if we don't, we're going to lose our republic. And so I really felt it resonated with me, and I felt a calling from God that day that I would run for a big seat one day. And I say a big seat because he really talked a lot about the federal government and how our founding fathers intended on it to be normal, everyday Americans running for these seats. But we feel intimidated and don't do it. And we have to get the rhinos out, and we got to get out the people who are only bought off by lobbyists and special interest. And when Ben Carson made his presidential bid in 2016, I got involved with his campaign. I was his county leader for Athling County, and my husband was for Jeff Davis, our neighboring county. And we made calls and did grassroots efforts, got signs out for him, did all that. And so I got a little taste of politics then, but that's the only campaign I've worked on outside of some local, campaigns, helping them put out signs and things. But definitely this did not prepare me to qualify and run for U.S. Senate, and everything I have been faced with in the past 6 months has been crazy.
And I hear that, but why did you decide to start with Senate, not something at town council or something like that, but to actually start for one of the big offices of senator?
For one thing, I can't, run for a state office or a local office being an educator. I can't take time off work like that. It wouldn't go with my contract and my schedule. So it has to be something I do instead of. But that's not the only reason. The main reason is because I feel like we need normal, everyday people in these elected positions. And that's why President Trump has resonated with people so much, because he went from businessman to president. And people that love Ben Carson, he went from neurosurgeon to running for president. We need normal people. And you'll see across the state in the last election, there are so many seats that were overturned and people were placed in there that had never been in office before, because we're tired of it. We don't trust these people anymore. They go up there, they sell their soul to the devil, they get all the money from big tech and special interests, and then they're controlled by them. They're not representing us. And we have a representative democracy for a reason. Half of the Congress are lawyers, and there's nothing wrong with a lawyer, but half of society is not lawyers. And so we are supposed to be representative of the people. Then we need every walk of life and every career represented there. You can be empathetic with me and you can try to be compassionate, but if you've never lived on a budget and you've never had to tell your children, we can't buy that this week, we've got to wait till payday, you don't know what it's like to represent me and make laws and decisions for me. And so I decided to step up and be that voice for the people, for normal working class America.
Well, and the idea of having people in there that understand that, these laws should apply to everybody. A lot of the people we've got in there making laws nowadays seem to somehow manage to make them except for the people that are working and making the laws.
Kind of like the insider trading, that like the Senate can have information and then not be held accountable, but then Martha Stewart went to prison for it. Exactly. That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You as senators and congressmen in the House, they should be held to a higher standard than us, not a lower standard.
I don't disagree whatsoever. And there is not a standard there anymore, it seems like, for a lot of them. Well, let me ask you this. If you're elected and to this office of Senate, what will you be your focus, your main focus, or some of your focuses as far as, of what you're going to do?
Well, 2 term limits, first of all. If it's good enough for the governor and it's good enough for the president, it's good enough for the Senate, especially when you have a 6-year term. We have to get term limits. Some of these people have been in there 40 years. They're so bought off. They're so out of touch with reality. It wasn't intended to be a career. It was intended to be a place that you go serve and you come home to your family and to your career and work. And that's got to happen. Term limits have to happen. 80% of the populace, including Democrats, Republicans and Democrats, they want term limits. Well, they tried to bring that about last year, and Ted Cruz, if you look on YouTube, you can watch the Senate debates about it. He actually pushed for that on his committee, and it was flipped. 20% of the Senate voted for term limits and 80% didn't. So they were reversed of what their constituents want. And that's got to change. We got to get people in there that want term limits. I'm only going to do 2 terms, whether the term limit's in effect or not. There's plenty of smart people in Georgia who love the Constitution and the country that can go and serve. And I just believe when you get up there, it starts changing you, and you lose touch with who you are and lose touch with the people. You can't stay there that long. Another thing I want is fair tax. Our Vice President, Mike Pence, wants a fair tax, and Ben Carson ran on a fair tax principle. I feel like we all need the same skin in the game. And when I'm paying 34% taxes and other people have tax shelters and loopholes and they're not paying taxes, they don't get it. And so when they make laws and codes and all these things they're doing up there, they don't understand what it's like to be me and be you. And so we have to get somebody up there that understands and can get it worked out. I have billionaires supporting me that also want a fair tax because they're working class America. They truly are the American dream and went from hard working, blue collar working to multi-millionaire, billionaire status, and they still want fair tax because they say, their workers, some of them don't pay taxes. They get all their tax money back. We need a consumption tax so it's fair. That's the only way to be fair.
I have absolutely no problem. I've always been a supporter of the fair tax. The biggest problem is the fair tax is the misrepresentation that is done by by the media, by a lot of the liberal and some of the conservative. They just don't really understand what the fair tax is, or they understand and they don't want it. And I think it might tend to be more the latter than the former. But the fair tax is literally a fair tax if you really get down into it and read it and understand it. So I'm with you there. So you're talking about term limits and fair tax in our basically our dealing with our taxation as two of your primary focuses.
Right. And then another one is mental health. I have a background in mental health, and we have a huge mental health crisis in America. We can see it with the opiate epidemic, and the jails have become holding places for mentally ill. 9 years ago, we closed a lot of inpatient treatment facilities. In Georgia alone, we released 9,000 residents on the street, and these are people that are not taking their medication. They don't have means to get their medication, and nobody to help them, and 90% of them are still homeless. And it's a huge issue. And to me, they're the most vulnerable population outside of children, mentally ill, and we have to help them. And if they don't have a voice, and people in government don't care because they don't have to deal with it, but it's us in our communities that are seeing the rise of our own children with drugs and with crime rates going up from stealing to get drugs. We need it addressed. No, there's not one household that does not have an effect of drug abuse on the family. And so we have to do better with that, and we can. We're the leading nation of the world. We're smart, and we can figure that out and get the experts at the table, and let's fix the problem.
Totally agree. And mental health is a big one, but healthcare overall is a biggie, and it's really, you've got people on both sides just going to the far ends of each way. And what is your position as far as the healthcare situation, as far as what we should do, whether we do total healthcare like a socialist country, or whether we do competitive and marketplace healthcare? Where do you stand on that?
Free market capitalism. That's what our country is about, founded on. That's what works. That's what has made us the greatest land in the world. I don't know why people want to change things and make them. They're trying to make it fair, I understand, but we need less government, not more. We're already outside of our budget. I had a congressman tell me, it doesn't matter if we have no extras added, just the operation of the federal government and what's already promised out with legislation, we don't meet budget. That's a huge issue. That means every year, no matter what they decide in Congress, we're going to be going into our national debt further. And it's making our dollar unstable. And Ben Carson, this is what resonated with me when he spoke. Dr. Carson said, if the dollar was not the world currency and there was the euro or the one or whatever, and the world leaders decided, okay, the dollar's not stable, we're not going with the dollar. In 3 months, we'd be a third world nation. That scared me to death. That's why I said, I'm running for office one day. We got to fix this. We got to quit this spending. And that's why it freaked me out when they started borrowing all these trillions for the COVID crisis. And I understand we had to have it, and we're in something we've never faced before. But we have to have a strategic plan to get this national debt paid down. It is out of control. And that's why things cost so much, and inflation, but it makes our economy unstable, and we have to get it fixed.
Well, I know that it seems like lately everybody that goes in talks about a balanced budget, but nobody ever does anything about it. So maybe you'll get an opportunity if you get there to help try and put some brakes on this spending stuff. Well,
I've been asked, what are you going to cut? I said, well, the IRS, if we do a fair tax, that's a huge department.
Yep.
Then we'll go and I'm an educator. And so they're like, well, what about the Department of Education? And I'm like, I'll start dismantling it too, because it's a state right in the Constitution. We need autonomy in the classroom. We need the federal government to get out. And that's
Absolutely.
What I feel like. And teachers feel like that too. They don't have autonomy. They're the most educated people on the planet, but they're not treated like that. They're given a script. They're pushed, do this, do this, do this. Let them teach. Give them standards and let them teach.
Sounds like an excellent plan to me. Well, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced during your campaign here?
I faced a lot of challenges. One thing is everything though comes back to one issue. It's the establishment. Okay, so I faced challenges in fundraising because I'm an educator. I'm not a salesman. So I'm straight up honest, and people want to give to you, but then if you don't have a chance, if they think, oh, well, you don't have a chance, they don't want to invest their money there, mm-hmm. right? because you want to make a good investment. Now that I'm picking up speed and I'm picking up momentum, I'm having more money come in. But that was a challenge, especially at first, to get the ball rolling. And then another thing is going to GOP meetings, and they're part of the establishment, and they're supposed to be for all Republican candidates. We qualify to run Republican. I voted Republican my entire life. I go, and I've been told by 4 Republican GOP chairs that I'm not allowed to speak at their meeting. And it's understood that if you show up as a candidate, you get at least 2 minutes, even if you show up and you're unannounced. But if you call ahead, you're supposed to get 5 to 10 minutes. And that's understood in our party. But yet I've been told, no, you can't speak, because they're for one of the other candidates running, and they want to blackball me. And it's really disheartening and unfortunate, because they're not giving their voters a chance to hear from all the candidates. That's a beautiful thing about America. We get to choose who we want to vote for. And you vote for who represents you the best. That's what I always tell everybody. If it's me, that's working class America, that's never ran for anything, and I'm going to go fight for you like I fought against sex offenders my entire career as a school counselor to put them in bars, vote for me. If it's a billionaire who made money on the COVID crisis, vote for her. If it's a 15-year career politician who votes Democrat half the time, vote for him. Vote for who represents you the best, but don't be controlled and manipulated by the party and by other people that's empowered, because they're the establishment. That's the problem.
Well, I think everybody needs to be heard. And you would think, and I know I did, that for all intents and purposes, there were only 2 candidates running for this Senate seat. You would think that by listening to the news media and the support and all that. But you said there, how many candidates actually running?
So 21, 6 Republican, 8 Democrat, 5 Independents, a Libertarian, and a Green Party.
Wow. And nobody thinks there's anything but 2. That says a lot.
Many talks.
Yep. Well, amen to that part. If you do get elected, how will you be able to stay true to yourself and not become like these others that you're talking about that get elected?
I've asked myself this question several times. I've had other people ask me this, and I just know who I am. I know who I am in the Lord. I know who I am as a person. I've turned down money already from a very big super PAC because they wanted me to initial and sign off on, I would not do this, I would do this, and represent them. And I told them, y'all need the money, but I'm not going to go up to represent you. I'm going to represent the people, or I'll stay home. If I can't represent the people, I'm just going to stay home. And I think that other people get up there and they start taking this money because you feel pressure to, even as far as what committee you're put on in the House and the Senate, depends on how much fundraising you've done. And they feel pressure to take the money, but then they're owned by big business. They're owned by big tech. They're not able to represent the people. And so I'm just, I may only make it one term because I may not make it because I won't take the money, but I'm not going to be bought off. I'm not going to sign my life away. I'm not going to be blackmailed, and I'm going to stay true to who I am. And that's how I'm going to be different, because I know who I am in the Lord, and he's going to put me there, and he's going to sustain me while I'm there.
Well, I think that if you look at it like that and you stay true to that, you'd make a damn good senator.
Thank you.
What would you say to others who may be thinking of running for political office? Because I know that coming from where you do as an educator and never having particularly made that decision to run for anything, I know that you faced a lot of challenges moving into this, and probably a lot of challenges in making the initial decision to move on it. So what would you say to others who may be thinking about that?
I would say to do it. Do it. If you have a desire in your heart to run for office and represent, do it. It's a brave thing to go and put your name on a ballot. And that's been said in several of the meetings I'm in, and they're exactly right. Because when you write your name on the ballot, you're opening your whole life. Any mistake you've had, if you've been divorced, anything that's happened, you're opening it up to be scrutinized by the media, who are ruthless. And they are the driving force behind the career politicians. The media is just as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than government. And so you're asking, not your media, but I'm talking about these big networks that are bought off by lobbyists. You probably don't have lobbyists giving you millions of dollars, Reed.
No, I don't have them give me 50 cents.
that I'm talking about the people that are owned by, just like the politicians are owned, they're owned too. And these people control the narrative. And so it's a risk when you write your name on the ballot and you go qualify, you know you're going to be attacked. But do it, because we can't be silenced. Political correctness is what's got our country in the mess it's in. As Christians and as working class America, we've been busy working and going to church and cooking supper and taking our kids to practices. And we've trusted the people we've elected to do their job, but they haven't done their job. They haven't represented us. They've sat out there and become fat cats financially and with power. And we've sat here and we have realized, buildings being burned down around us, and the people that are burning down buildings have never built one. And we're looking at this and we're angry that they're coming into our cities and doing this. It's because we have sat back quiet and not wanted to offend anybody. So it's time. The church and the normal working day people are waking up, and they're realizing it, and they're going to stop it. And so if you feel in your heart it's time to run, you do it. We got to do it. We got to get them all out.
Well, I can tell you political correctness today is killing this country.
Yes.
You've got to learn to speak your mind. You've got to have the ability to be tolerant, to listen to other people speak their mind. And the party that claims to be the most tolerant party that is there is actually totally intolerant of anything that's against their views. They're tolerant as long as you agree with them, but God bless you, and look out for the hell to rain if you don't. So
that's right.
Well, you say you're Republican, but conservatism and republicanism are two different things in a lot of times. And what would you say? Let's just say, how conservative are you? Are you a conservative, or are you Republican, or are you both, or how do you describe yourself?
Well, I'm probably the most conservative one running, in that I'm a constitutionalist. I'm more of a constitutionalist than a Republican, because right. I'm going to protect the Constitution 100% of the time. And if you look at our senators and our U.S. congressmen, most of them are at 50 to 75, most at 50. That they're liberal half the time. And so they're not protecting the Constitution half the time. And Derek Grayson, that's running against me, he likes to ask this. He likes to say, how much of the Constitution are you willing to give up? Half of it? 20% of it? 10%? And we're like, no, we don't want to give up any of it. Okay, well, you've elected people that are not representing it 100% of the time. And he's exactly right. And so I think, for me, I want less spending. I want to trim government down. I want to work myself out of a job. The government should be small. At the national level, it was created to be small. I want freedom. What people don't understand is when they start getting all these laws and all the stuff put in place, it is actually taking freedom away from them. They're actually becoming more dependent on the government, more enslaved to the government, instead of having freedom. So all the men and women that died to fight for us is in vain if we just freely give it up to socialistic ideas. And I don't think people really are conceptualizing that in their head. They think, oh, well, everybody deserves health care. Well, everybody does this. Of course, we want to take care of people, but we can't feed the whole world and take care of the whole world. Who's going to work and pay for it? Money's not an arbitrary thing. It actually means something. But we're printing it off like it means nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, except today, now that they need money, they just run in and crank up the presses. And supposedly, it's amazing to me how many people do not understand that what putting more money into the system actually does. And they think that, it just automatically makes everything okay because they got the money. But, that decreases the value and everything else when you start just pumping it in there. And
I read a research study that said the $12,000 stimulus for an individual would cost them $29,000 in inflation over their lifetime.
Wow, that's quite a figure. I hadn't even realized it was that much. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was that much. Well, I know that, as people go through this idea of, free, I like free. I see everything being promised. We're going to have, I saw Biden the other day say, when I get in there, everybody's going to have free education, free college education. People just don't get that it's not free. Somebody has to pay for it. And the people that are working are the people that are paying the taxes, and they're the people that are going to have to pay for this free schooling. And, it's everything free health care. Nothing's free. And
nothing's free.
As long as we keep going with these people on this, everything's free, that's the narrative, and that's what it becomes. You say it enough, people begin to believe it. So how do you?
Well, one thing is too, I was going to say, Rick, about that. If they start saying, okay, we'll give $50,000 to every high school senior, because I've heard a candidate say that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, no way, because all it's going to make the university do is up their tuition, because they know the government's going to pay it. So it doesn't help the government getting involved and trying to help out and trying to give breaks. All it does is work like a domino effect and make everybody rise up to the occasion.
Well, how do you counter the discussions and the narrative that's being put out here on this free, that everything's free? How do you counter it in your positions with your running, with your candidacy?
I just totally am like, we have to work. And if you have the mindset that you don't have to work, then you need to read the Bible, because the Bible says those who don't work don't eat. And I don't know where the mentalities come from over the years of it. I guess just giving more and more and more money away, but it's got to stop. And it's got to stop at a low level in education and teaching our children the value of a dollar and the value of hard work. It starts at home, in the houses, and we've got to flip the script on this mentality that we've gotten in America, because it's wrong.
Well, where are you, and speaking of that, where are you on school vouchers, that type of situation? Because I know that being an educator, it's kind of it's a different position for you, because you're both an educator, you're involved in the system, but a lot of the parents out here on school choice and everything, and they're for it. But where do you stand on all this stuff?
For total freedom. Like, I'm for total freedom. I'm okay with vouchers, but my thing is, how is the money going to shift around? People don't understand the complexity of how we get money in FTE, mm-hmm. and how we report back, and the accountability to make sure that students are actually being educated, and they're not just, being counted at one school district and getting the funding, but they're actually not being present. And so it's just flipping around between schools is a tricky thing, and it has to be something that's really looked at, researched, developed. It's not something that you can just flippantly say, okay, I'm getting a voucher and I'm going to this school, but then I'm mad at my teacher, so a month later I'm going to go to another school. The research shows that if a child switches school one time during a school year, they lose 6 months of education, even though they're in school, because every school's at a different place in their study and in their content, and they may have gotten fractions at one school when they're getting decimals. When they were teaching decimals, they go back and get fractions again, if that makes sense. And so just the school choice thing, I'm okay with it. I'm not against it. I'm not saying the government should have total control over where you send your child. I agree. I don't want the government having control of me at all, but we have to use wisdom and apply wisdom there, and ease it into a system that's already established. You don't just totally remove a system and it crumble to the ground. We have to, get people, the experts in, and look at it. And, like I said earlier, with the stimulus check, it's a domino effect. So you have to look at what the result is going to be to make sure your action is correct and the reaction is not worse.
Totally agree. The big thing with me is, my feeling, I'm all for vouchers. I'm all for people being able to select a school, especially not be forced to send their children to a school that just does a very lousy job of educating. They're on record as having a problem. But I think that once they need to do their research, just like in voting, they need to do their research before they make their choice. And once they make their choice, I think they should be required to stay there for the year. That way you get more careful on making those choices.
And that's something that would have to be put into place. It's like right now what we're dealing with virtual school choice versus face-to-face. And, we've held them to the semester on that. It has been mass chaos trying to figure out who's on virtual, who's not, getting their assignments to them, and then even tracking down kids who didn't come back. You're missing children. Some of us have abused children, and you don't know, are they dead? are they kidnapped? Are they in human trafficking? Like, where are the kids? And so DFACS is going to have an influx of schools calling and reporting children missing. They're going to have to locate. And it just has shown, this whole situation with COVID and the change in here has shown me even more, like, you have to have something in place, and it can't be just done overnight. It takes time to look at all the different aspects of it. But yes, I want to have choice. I want parents to have choice. We shouldn't be tied down and not ever have a voice in our own children's education.
Totally agree. Well, listen, I could go on for probably another hour talking to you, and I know that you could, because you don't get as much of an outreach as you'd like. And I hope that people really pay attention to what you've had to say. We get this out on all the platforms, and so that your message will get out, and people can, as I say, I stress, people have got to make an informed decision this year, regardless
That's right.
of how you vote. Know who you're voting for and where they stand before you cast the ballot. Don't do it because mama votes that way, daddy votes that way, my sister, my third cousin, whatever. Don't vote that way. Make up your own mind based on your own knowledge.
Right. Vote for who represents you the best, whoever that is. Vote for them. And I like to tell people, I'm Candice Taylor. My name's spelled different. It's spelled Kandiss Taylor.com. You can look me up on all social media. But vote for who represents you and represents you the best. But I am the one you've been waiting for. I'm different than the others.
Well, you sound like it, and I love hearing what you got to say. If, other than that address, is that the only way people, if they have more information or want more information, they can reach you on?
Yeah. So on my website, I have all of my social media linked. But I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. And then my email is CandissTaylor@gmail.com if you want to reach me there. But I'd love to hear from you and what you have to say. If you have any further questions for my interview today, please reach out and ask me.
Sounds great. And that's Candice, Kandiss Taylor.
That's right.
And she's running for U.S. Senate seat. Thank you
That's
very
right.
much. Well, thank you for joining us on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. Remember, you can join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning, or you can listen to our show anytime you want by going to businessradiox.com, clicking on the Gwinnett Studio, and then, of course, click on Case in Point. Be sure and hit that subscribe button, because we need all your participation. Let me know you're there. And join us next week at 11:30 when we will talk with business leaders and business individuals about their businesses and related security issues in today's world. Remember, Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.